How's it going, guys? I'm TheoJoe, and for those of you who have never owned a domain or a website before because you didn't see the point, well, this video might make you think again and give you some specific reasons why even an average person can use one. And for demonstration of the examples I'll be talking about in this video, I'll be using the hosting service called Hostinger, who is also the sponsor of today's video, so big thanks to Hostinger for that. And I do think this is a great service because they offer a high performance at a surprisingly affordable price. In fact, one of their slogans is literally milliseconds matter. They've got several types of plans to fit whatever you're looking for, from simple web hosting for a small site all the way to virtual private server hosting plans for those advanced users out there. And there's plenty of features too, such as automatic WordPress installation, a website builder, and email hosting. Be sure to check out hostinger.com/TheoJoe, where they're actually running a limited time Black Friday offer right now of up to 91% off yearly hosting plans. And that link will also be in the description. So now let's get started. So the first reason you might want a website is to simply have a personal page where you can share all your social media links in one place. So in this case, Hostinger has a website builder, which is pretty good for basic static websites, or you could always use WordPress if you want. We'll get to that later. But here you can see after I pick the template I want, I'm just gonna edit a bit of the text, change the social media icons to the ones I want, and just kind of move them around in general, get the design how I want looking. And then, like I said, this would be a really basic case where it's just a hub for all your links, nothing too fancy. And you can change it so there are no pictures if you don't want, or you can have the pictures in there and just change them around however. And this website builder in particular has a thing called auto layout, which is supposed to auto adjust the layout you make depending on whether you're being viewed on a desktop or mobile, but you might want to just disable that and do it yourself sometimes. That way you can pick exactly how you want it to look on mobile instead of relying on the automatic mode. So that's just what I like to prefer. Now, the next reason you might be able to use a website is if you just want a web resume or like a general about me type site. So this might be good, for example, if someone does a search for you on Google, then there's a good chance that your site will be one of the top results, especially if the domain name is just your full name. So if you go to do this, you could have this just as a separate page in your site that you already created with a social media one, or just have the about page be your main page. But in this case, I'll just create a new page as an example, and I just copied everything over, so we'll kind of have to clear that out a bit. And when I go to add some text, there's a few different blocks they're called, which I'll bring in, and this one seems about right. It's overlaid over some of the previous stuff, so I'll just rearrange all that. And you can change around all the pictures and stuff, obviously. Maybe you don't want to keep it as default, maybe you do. And I may as well upload a profile picture to put on the side, and then make sure that gets resized correctly so it's not stretching. I'm not going to write a whole novel here, but you can probably imagine what you might want to put here. Like if you want to list all your achievements and skills, your work history, education, stuff like that might be good for a resume type page. And again, this is going to be a really basic example. You could probably make it look a lot more fancy if you wanted to by adding a few more pictures. You could also use a different block layout, so maybe you could add one with some rows and images if you wanted a specific picture for each job description. That would look pretty cool, so you can really get it however you want. Now, a third use for a website might be if you want to host your photos you take somewhere besides just on Instagram or Facebook. So you could use the website builder for this too, or if you plan to update it frequently and with new pictures, it might make more sense to use WordPress, which is like a framework for blogs. It's the most popular one out there. Hostinger does actually offer an auto installer for WordPress. You can just set it up automatically. You don't have to do it yourself. And then it's just a matter of choosing a theme first. There's countless free ones. So I just searched photo portfolio and found a decent one called Hitchcock. And then I can customize it a bit, like changing the background and removing any extra stuff like the footer. I don't need all that stuff. Now with WordPress, there's a few different ways to do things depending on the theme. So there are things called pages and posts, but for this theme in particular, what we'll do is customize it so the homepage just displays latest posts, and then you can create a new post for each picture. You'll see what I'm talking about. So for example, if we go and create a new post and then add an image block and then upload a picture, which I already did and I selected here, and then you can caption it however you want if people click on it. And then also in this particular theme, you have to make sure it's set as a featured image as well, so it will show up on the main page, as you'll see. And then you can add as many posts with pictures as you want, or add multiple pictures to a post, and then whichever one you set as the featured image is the one that will show up on the main page. So that's just one example with one theme, and you can obviously do more, like adding text and stories to each post and whatnot. Alright, so next up, another really useful reason to have a website is if you want to host your own files on there. Of course, there are other options like if you want to use Google Drive or Dropbox for sharing files, but it might come in handy to upload certain files on your own site in a few situations because they'll be accessible from anywhere. For example, maybe there's some file you use regularly, but you aren't always in a place where you want to or can't log into your Google Drive account or whatever, like a public computer you don't trust maybe, or your friend's house. If you store that file on a website, as long as you remember the URL of the file, you can access it from anywhere, just hand it out. Now, obviously, it probably isn't wise to upload anything confidential because technically it would be publicly available to anyone who can get the URL, but if it's something innocuous, that's fine. Anyway, all web hosts will have some way to upload files to your site, and usually a user interface in the form of a file manager like here, and then you can see all the files in your directory of your website. And since my WordPress installation is in there, there's a lot of files already, so I'll just create a new folder, call it My Stuff. And then here you can upload whatever you want. And then you can also create a new file, like a text file. And then you can see that if you go to the same URL as the directory structure, there's the file. So in this case, the website /mystuff/example.txt, and then it comes up. Another way this might be useful is if you have to share a certain file with a lot of people, you can just give everyone the URL of the file, which is probably going to be a lot shorter and easier to remember than a lot of file sharing services which generate a big unique long string with the URL, which is okay if you're just sending the link in an email or something, but it might be difficult if you have to actually like speak it out and try to remember it. Anyway, I'm sure you can imagine how this might come in handy. Alright, now finally, another really great reason to have your own domain and website is so you can set up your own custom email address on that domain. This may or not be a separate add-on with your host, and there are a ton of different ways to do it. With Hostinger, for example, they have a pretty easy setup, and it just integrates with a service called Flockmail, but you can just choose any email address you want on your domain and then just start using it. If you're a bit more tech savvy, you can even set up G Suite, which is a Google service which basically lets you use the Gmail interface with your own domain email address, which is what I do personally, but that does require editing DNS MX records, and I'm definitely not going to get into that today, so if you don't know what all that is, don't worry about that. There are really easy ways to do it just through your host. Now, you might be wondering why you would care to have an email address of your own, and that's a good question. First of all, it's pretty cool, obviously, when you give people your email address and the domain is your actual name or something, instead of just being Gmail or your ISP's domain. It just seems a little bit more professional, I think. Another big reason is you'll always have complete control over that email address because you own the domain name. Like if you use an email address through your ISP and you move and change ISPs, what are you gonna do? They might let you keep it, but I'm not sure, and it will depend on that ISP. Or even if for whatever reason, maybe your Google account gets banned, taking your Gmail account along with it, then you'd kind of be screwed. If you own your own domain though, you own every email address on that. So even if you were using G Suite to host your emails and you got your Google account banned, you could just redirect the domain's DNS mail records to a different service and keep using the same email address over there. It just lets you have complete control over your email address. So maybe by now, if you never saw the point of having a website of your own, well, maybe you've changed your mind, or at least see how it might be something worth looking into in the future. Again, I want to thank Hostinger for sponsoring this video, and be sure to check out hostinger.com/TheoJoe to check out their limited time Black Friday deals, and that link again will also be right in the description. So as usual, let me know what you guys think down in the comments about all this, what you thought of the video. If you want to keep watching, what I recommend next is a fun experiment where I made a video where I deleted the Windows folder just to see what would happen while Windows was running. It was pretty fun. You can just check that video out right here. It should pop up. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.